On New Year's Eve 1957, you led a group of volunteers on an attack on Brookborough Barracks in County Fermanagh. And that night I was under the bed with two Protestants, John Kirkpatrick and Eric McGarr, who's now a Church of Ireland minister in Kesh in County Fermanagh. What are your memories from that night?
It's a long time ago now. I've written a small piece for a publication which was issued at the New Year there.
I read that.
In the main, it was a question of, we had been in Fermanagh for some days and we had been trying to find a target where we could make an attack. And we chose Brookborough Barracks because it had certain significance to the Brookborough, the Prime Minister, who was very bigoted and reactionary individual. It was then we thought that it would be a kind of a signal to people throughout Ireland, not just in Northern Ireland. We had this lorry which we drove into this town.
It was from Clark's Quarry, wasn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the lorry, as I said in the short piece I wrote, that it pulled up on the wrong side of the street. This was the major factor in the casualties, because anybody who was shot, wounded or killed, was killed or shot or wounded in the lorry, because the lorry pulled up on the same side of the road as the barracks underneath the gable end, and which there was a window in the gable end, and the sergeant was able then to more or less shoot at will into the back of the lorry, which was directly underneath him. And
he used a Bren gun.
Well, I always thought it was a Sten gun myself, but somebody told me recently it was a Bren gun. You see, when the lorry pulled up, everybody jumped out and ran to do what they were supposed to do. So that there was no thought about the lorry being in the wrong place, and that we had to more or less make do. But publication. After some minutes, I realised that we weren't getting anywhere. In the bombs had failed to go off, and even though Dave O'Connell and the other lads at the door of the barracks tried again with the bomb, it still failed. So I realised that we weren't going to succeed. It was best to get out. So we called for withdrawal, and then everyone more or less piled into the lorry and sped out of town. But it was very much a disaster at that stage, because with 2 men dead and 4 wounded, it was quite considerable casualties. But as I say, it was the location of the lorry being under the barrack window. There has been a suggestion that the driver did this because there were some children playing on the streets. But that's hardly sufficient reason.
The 2 Protestant fellas that were in our house that night, they came into our house and they said that the IRA put them off the street, told them to get off the street.
Yeah, well, there would have been, you see, we had one man who was delegated to keep one end of the town clear, from preventing you from coming on top of us, and the other chap went up to the far end of the street in order to keep that road open. And this volunteer would have told people to get off the streets, and that would have been, was certainly sensible. But we had 14 men, and each of them had specific tasks. And these 2, one was to keep the back end of town open, or preventing him from coming in on top of us. The other was to keep the other end of the town open so we could go out that way. So that was his role, keeping people off the street.
So with 2 dead and 4 injured, did you think that you were going to escape? And you were shot yourself?
I was, yes. As I say, I was shot getting into the lorry. My left leg was badly shot up. The lorry stopped at Baxter's Cross, it was called, and we got out. Well, I knew then that Seán South was dead and Fergal O'Hanlon was in a very, very poor way. And then when we got them out of the lorry, then the other lads carried them into this cowboy. We headed then into the mountains because we could see lorries and the lights of cars and other vehicles heading in our direction. So it was necessary for us to get out of that particular area.
There was snow on the ground in places?
Yeah, there would have been. Well, the chap Pat Connolly, who was a local guide, he was from Fermanagh. He knew his country very well, and so he was able to more or less ascertain the best way to cross the mountain. It was difficult enough, because given that you were wounded and people were helping each other and carrying arms as well. Pat Connolly then, at some point in time, went on his own and discovered that we were actually near the Free State border, as it was called then. And as I remember his voice coming back and shouting out, "We're in the state, we're in the state." So when we got down then to the farmhouse, and the people very generously let us in and helped to
Hatch, yeah.
yeah. So then we were waiting for the ambulance to come, but there was no sign. It was David O'Connell, after the weapons had been secured, went down. There was a roadblock not far from the house. You know, army guarded roadblock. So he went down, and then they came up to the house, and the ambulance came after them and took us all to Monaghan Hospital and took the rest of them to the jail.
And you were to see one of the funerals through your hospital window, isn't that right?
This is a memory that stays with me, that we were in the Monaghan Hospital for a couple of days, and we had more or less been patched up to some extent, and then you could see out the window. We were up on, you know, a certain floor, a second floor maybe. But I remember the night that the bodies, Fergal O'Handle and Seán South, were brought from Fermanagh to Monaghan town, that the long cortege of cars, and the lights piercing the darkness, and this was the funeral cortege of Fergal O'Handle and Seán South being brought to Monaghan. It was a kind of a very sad reminder of our two comrades who had died at that time.
Seán Garland continues this story in next week's programme, and that's after Tommy Sands. Please join us then. And in 2 weeks' time, we'll be having a special tribute to my old friend Tommy Makem, who died on Thursday. Seán Garland's last track ready to roll, so from me, Bobbie Hanvey, the Ramblin Man, is good night and God bless.